Let's get right to the latest on Robert Durst. Police in Los Angeles filing murder charges against the millionaire heir last night. He could now face the death penalty for killing his best friend, Susan Berman. His lawyer promising to fight those charges. And Durst could be in the middle of an extradition battle, also facing new charges in New Orleans. ABC's Matt Gutman is there right now. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, George. And what is so stunning for the man in the jail complex behind me is that after decades of suspicion, those capital murder charges coming out of Los Angeles and the gun charges here coming barely 2 hours apart. This morning, Robert Durst facing the possibility of the death penalty, charged with first-degree capital murder overnight for allegedly executing his friend and confidant, Susan Berman. The LAPD telling ABC News an anonymous viewer of HBO's documentary series, The Jinx, calling in the fateful tip. The indictment alleging Durst was lying in wait for Berman and that she was killed specifically because she was a witness to a crime. Authorities have long suspected Berman may have had information about the 1982 disappearance of Durst's first wife, Kathy, a crime for which Durst has long been suspected but never charged. Then, barely an hour after those charges, the Orleans Parish DA slapping him with weapons charges. Arresting him at this luxury hotel in New Orleans over the weekend, police say he checked in with a fake ID, packing a .38 special and a small amount of marijuana. Durst, who was also acquitted in the death of his neighbor in 2003, waived his right to extradition in this New Orleans courtroom Monday. The millionaire, shackled hands and feet in an orange jumpsuit, came to this spot and he looked at the judge. The judge asked him questions. He answered yes or yes, Your Honor. Judge Janine Pirro tried to prosecute him for the disappearance of his wife, Kathy, in 1982.
You know, this guy lies every time he opens his mouth. He's a serial murderer. He's gotten away with it because of money. He's not going to get away with it this time.
His lawyers see it differently, telling reporters,
Bob Durst didn't kill Susan Berman. He's ready to end all the rumor and speculation and have a trial.
As for the series itself, police not confirming whether revelations like that apparent confession will be used as evidence.
There it is. Your court. Kill them all.
Even as the director, Andrew Jarecki, told us he turned the tape over to law enforcement months ago.
We said, we have something more.
And the big question this morning is no longer whether he will stand trial, but where. Will the DA here in New Orleans get him, or will he be extradited to Los Angeles? And of course, those off-camera mutterings that we heard on HBO, will they come back and jinx him in the courtroom? George.
That is a big question. Okay, Matt Gutman, let's talk to Dan Abrams about that. All right, there's some questions about whether the admissibility of that tape or not, but one of the interesting things we learned in one report is that the LA prosecutor saying they didn't even rely on the tape in order to bring the charges.
Well, we talked about this before. The letter, that when you compare a letter that was sent to the police department where it was clear the person knew Susan Berman was dead, and you compare that to the handwriting of Robert Durst, it's almost identical with the same misspellings, etc. That has got to be the key piece of evidence that changed everything in connection with this investigation. So when the police say this had nothing to do with the documentary, let them say that the timing of the arrest wasn't timed to coincide with the time of the last episode. But to suggest that it had nothing to do with the documentary is, of course, absurd.
Not credible at all.
I mean, the reason they were able to get this incredibly important piece of evidence is because of this documentary.
And that key phrase in the criminal complaint, that Susan Berman was killed because she was a witness to a crime, the police and prosecutors trying to establish motive?
Well, yeah, and again, let's be clear. Witness to a crime doesn't mean she actually witnessed the crime. What they're saying is that she was a witness they wanted to speak to who had information about the crime. Remember, the police reopened the investigation in 2000, only months before Susan Berman gets killed. The police decide they want to talk to Susan Berman. Weeks before Susan Berman goes to the police, she gets killed.
Okay, Dan Abrams, thanks very much.